There was once a sun, a large ball of fire. He sat there day after day, alone in the universe. Finally, tired of the loneliness, the sun decided to make a friend for himself. But the sun was not very good at making things yet. Every friend he made was too far away to play with. They only liked to sparkle all the time and were too afraid to play. This made the sun sad. Nothing had quite the passion or burning desire to enjoy themselves like the sun. Then a planet came into orbit. Finally, there was a friend who could play and have fun. But the planet was old and too tired to play. He only wanted a nice warm sun to revolve around. But he was able to offer the sun a trade. "You keep me warm," said the planet, "and I'll give you the secret to make other planets." The sun agreed to this promise, and the sun learned to make planets. This newfound skill was very clumsy at first. He made one planet that was too big and wasn't happy, and another one that was too small and scared. Finally, after many failed attempts, the sun managed to find the perfect balance of size and distance from him. Because Earth is so perfectly built and positioned, it became the perfect home for everything in existence. Thus, the planet we live on was born. When the world was first created, everything was young. There were no deserts. Those are ancient lands. There were no nights and no seasons. It was always spring. Everything was still growing. The world was new and empty. The ball of dirt had not yet begun to collect beans or plants. Then, something grew. It was grass, and in the grass were all sorts of creatures, bugs and snakes, little mice and deer. There were other creatures made too. These creatures didn't like the grass, so they dug into the ground. The digging made more room for creatures that liked the ground, worms and moles. From the holes came larger mounds of dirt. This dirt grew and grew and grew until the piles reached the sky. This made even more room for beings who enjoyed heights. Rams and mountain lions began to move onto the dirt piles. Everywhere new creatures and new land was forming. Trees grew from the ground, and bushes grew too. The trees had feelings and moods. Some were calm and just liked to bask in the sun, providing good shelter for animals who wished for shade. Some were sweet and kind, and liked to create fruits to share with the beings of the planet. Some were spunky, and made fruit as well, but theirs were sour and tart. There were also flowers and small plants, such as carrots and potatoes that grew. They didn't want to be trees, and were just happy to have a little space and be cozy on the earth. But some of the plants and flowers wanted to be big like the trees. But all the bigness was taken up by the trees, so instead they only grew skinny and tall. After all the creatures and plants were made, there needed to be someone to take care of them and help the beings reach their full potential. So humans came to find uses for the plants. The first humans discovered rudimentary uses for some of the beings, and sometimes the earth itself was used. Soon the inhabitants of the earth became tired, but they couldn't sleep because it was always daytime. The sky never went dark, and the brightness kept all the creatures awake. Everything was so new and young that tiredness became fussiness, and creatures and plants began to weep. They cried so much, large pools of salty tears began to form. The tears became so vast it took up the rest of the room on the earth. The sky saw this crying and felt bad. And in the first twilight, the last and most mysterious of all the creatures were made. Within the depths of the ocean there lie all sorts of unknown beings. Then the moon came into the spotlight, and the few creatures who could sleep in the brightness woke up. The owl started crying out for more friends, so bats and wolves came to give the owl company. After this, an arrangement was made to give the owl and his friends and all the other creatures equal time to work and play. Half the time the sun would be out, and half the time the moon would be out. Thus we have night and day, and the first cycle was started. After a while, the sun and moon got tired, so they went to sleep. But the sleep made the warmth go, and it got colder, and all the living things of the earth reacted to this change in temperature. Furry animals grew new and thicker coats, and other animals went to sleep through the cold times. But the most drastic change to this temperature can be seen among the most drastic and striking beings on this planet. Every year, when the planet gets cold, and the creatures make themselves warmer, and the trees make itself warm by taking colors of the sun. Some take colors of the sun at the end of the day, and others take sun during the brightest part of the day. That is why every year the trees change colors from cool and bright greens to warm reds and yellows. It's just to keep themselves warm, just like the rest of us do every year.